so you get 3 rolls on this tower here, and each number corresponds to a random question I have, and whatever you roll, that is where we start.
Okay. 3 rolls on the tower. What does that mean?
That goes
put
in
it
there.
in. Okay.
Yes.
I was like, I throw it at the tower.
Admittedly,
in the tower.
Ladies' Night taught me what a dice tower was. Before the show, I did not know.
I'm going to do it with my left hand.
Okay.
It's right there.
All right, we're starting out with a number 8. Number 8 is new skill. If you could learn a new skill or about a different profession through a role, what would you pick and why?
You know what? There's an opportunity that might be happening where I might need to learn a language. And I used to speak somewhat. I used to speak more Spanish. I took Spanish in high school and then sort of like slowly lost it. And so I am not even bilingual, and I would love to be. It's kind of embarrassing to not be.
I feel
Do you know
that
what I
way.
mean?
I tried.
Are you?
I tried real hard. I was terrible at French in high school, and then in college, I was very determined to learn Hebrew, and I studied and I worked real hard. And then I stopped the classes, and it all just, the only word I remember is the one that I have a tattoo of on my foot, and that's it. Oh, sure. Happiness. That's it.
Okay, I was like,
that's all I got. That's all I got. I don't remember a single
It's really,
word.
I think it needs to be, like, if I were to do it over again, I would insist as a baby for my parents to, I think it needs to be really young.
Yeah. I would request my parents insist that this is for them. They will watch this, that I learned a second language, and that maybe I learned a little more music early on.
I took piano lessons and then stopped. I would love to be able to play the piano.
Learning an instrument is like learning another language. So it all kind of goes in the same department.
It is. So language I think we have the same.
All right. Yeah. I love that I'm going to see this project eventually.
I really
and be
hope
like,
so.
Look at you doing
maybe I'm like putting it into the universe right now.
Everyone knows I call this the manifestation table.
Okay.
This is where we make things happen.
Great.
Like your second roll.
Oh, okay. Here we go. What else can we manifest?
6. It's like aggressive rolling today. It's great. Oh, this is a fun one. This one's just zombie apocalypse. You're on the set of No Good Deed. There is a zombie outbreak. You can pick 2 co-stars from that ensemble to team up with. Who do you pick that you think will give you the best chance of surviving the outbreak?
Okay. I'm randomly going to pick OT because I'm admitting I've only seen season 1 of Handmaid's Tale, but it felt like a very similar scenario where he was like they were escaping. I feel like he's played that.
Did you not see him run when you're sitting in the car?
Yeah, that was a sloppy run. But I will say something about OT is that I didn't, and half of the cast didn't know he was British because he was speaking in the American accent for the character. And then I'm going to pick Linda because she is like, I don't know, I feel like she could like manipulate and like, she's good at like wooing, and we might need that.
Okay.
I don't know anyone's like actual tangible skill set other than acting. I don't think Ray is actually a contractor.
Well, no, I would not
think
expect
he's really
that.
Making stuff with his hands. So I'm using just those. Yeah, those are my first.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a team I believe in, though.
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to believe that it's a realistic possibility you could all survive together.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, one more.
Third and final roll on the tower. Number 4 is set vice. What is your on-set vice? The food, the drink, the anything you turn to power through a tough day.
I'm a big coffee drinker. And on set, I think I drink more, like way more than I would drink. Actually, okay, it's more like caffeine. So I'll expand the thing to be caffeine where like if it's a night shoot, I'll let myself have a Red Bull.
I mean,
see, I can't.
Not much better.
I can't do it like regularly.
My mentality, that makes no sense whatsoever, is that if I switch the kind of caffeine that I'm consuming throughout the day, it's like drinking less caffeine, and it's not.
Okay, so is this like a Red Bull? What brand? Is this like a Celsius thing?
It's supposed to be healthier.
Excess? Like
excess. Meanwhile, it's got a whole bunch of ingredients on the side that I can't pronounce, so I don't know.
You seem okay on it, though.
I feel like my body's adjusted to it.
Hulk.
Yeah. I feel like I'm chasing that
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah.
If I could find another energy drink that like my whole body isn't like muted to at this point, I will drink it.
Okay, so they're gonna keep coming out with them.
I know.
That's what,
and I'll
that's
keep
what they do.
sampling them.
Yeah.
There's going to be a whole rotation on
Yeah.
Ladies' Night soon.
You're like,
who wants to sponsor
yes.
this show? I'll drink your drink. What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies' Night. Talking to Abbi Jacobson from No Good Deed. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be that first made you say to yourself, I have to be an actor?
I think, okay, my first thought is I don't know if it was in admitting I have to be an actor because that took me a really long time to like come to. But I think as an early kid, when I started, like as a young kid, when I started getting into comedy, it was because of Gilda Radner on SNL. And so I'm not the age where she was on SNL, but I was watching reruns, which are like, funnily enough, were on Comedy Central, and they would rerun old, like Gilda was in the original cast, so that's like 76 or 75 maybe, and I would rewatch them. And then also Gilda did Gilda Live, which is her Broadway solo show that they also replayed on Comedy Central. And I was obsessed with her. She had a book. She had a memoir that came out. And there was also a book called Bunny Bunny. And she was not – I'm like, when I discovered her, I don't think she was alive anymore. And I was just very into her. And I was like, I want to do that. And it took me a long time to be like, I want to be an actor. But I think for me, it was like, I want to make people laugh like that. And so as a kid, I would find little ways of doing that.
This is a big question, but do you remember the first thing you did that made you say to yourself, like I am funny. I do have the skill set to make it in that respect.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like, I'm going to make it. But yes, I do. I mean, and that's also weird when you look at think about your memories because I've sort of been asked this or written about this, so I can't tell if this is actually the real first one or the one that I've like remembered or decided was the first one. But so in 8th grade, my middle school had like your homeroom would have a student council representative. And that meant that if you were selected, I was the student council representative. And so every month you would go to student council meetings. So it was a representative from every homeroom, and you'd hear about like there's going to be a dance on Sunday, and there's going to be this vending machine. I remember at the time there was a big innovation in our school was that there was going to be a fruit vending machine. It was the 90s.
A fruit vending machine?
This is the 90s, a big.
We had a Snapple vending machine.
We had like snacks, but it was like, I think must have been like some governmental initiative to try to get public schools to have fruit more. Anyway, I remember that being like one of the things. And so you'd go to these meetings and then you'd go back to your homeroom and report of what was going on at school. And I was, again, obsessed with SNL. This time I was really into Mike Myers. He was sort of like the live shows I was watching. I was like enamored with him, and especially Coffee Talk, Linda Richman. And so I came to my homeroom and I did the reports as Linda Richman. I did it as Coffee Talk, and it was like eaten up. So I'm talking about the fruit machine, and I'm talking about all this stuff. And I think like the kids loved it, but I remember it was the teacher who loved it. And there were 3 teachers who they would come in, other homerooms would come in to watch me do this. And I'm like, what, 8th grade, you're 13? And I think I was at that point, if the adults are also, I don't know. I think
what
that was
courage to have to do that at 13. I was in a corner at 13,
I know,
not wanting to attract
I
any attention.
I think it was I wished I was they had school plays and stuff, but it was always a musical, and I was never going to do that. And so that always felt like not the world for me, and I wasn't really a theater kid. And so I was like, I'll do these weird skits by myself, even though for the class, but I don't know. I don't know. And
Amazing.
Then I felt that confidence there.
I might have been more active in like school government and things like that had I had a representative in my homeroom who pitched things that way.
And I'm here to say that have you ever seen a fruit vending machine?
Actually, yes. Nowadays,
Really?
they literally have vending machines for like there's makeup vending machines.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a vending machine for
like
everything
in the airport.
at the airport.
Yeah. But it like didn't really it wasn't really a big hit.
We had like standard snacks, and like I vividly remember like a whole vending machine just of Snapple.
Yeah.
It was an important thing.
Snapple was big in the 90s, but maybe I'm a little older than you. Yeah.
I think we might be like very, very similar. Now we don't have Snapple and we have excess,
Yes.
which is great. College now. So I love talking about studying like all types of art forms in school settings that are a bit more formal like that. You went to Maryland Institute College of Art and you studied fine arts and video production. I'm curious why particularly that degree, and when you first started the program, what did you envision yourself doing with that degree after?
Yeah. So again, I had like really not – I took like classes in high school. I'm from right outside Philadelphia. So I took a couple performing classes on the weekends in like after this student council thing. And in high school, I sort of dabbled, but it didn't really feel like I just my dad's a graphic designer. My mom was a ceramicist growing up, and I just like I was like the performance thing is not a real thing that you can do. And again, I wasn't like a theater major or anything. And so the visual art world is also so impossible to be successful at. But my parents were very tangible artists. So like my dad is an environmental graphic designer. My brother works with my dad now. And my brother was older than me, also went to school for fine art. So like I grew up with art. So like I drew all the time, and it felt like that was something I was good at. And in my high school, it was public high school, but we had art majors. And so it was like I could kind of take more classes in art, which was really incredible. And those were always my favorite, and I was really good at it. And so that was just like, I guess I'll do that. And I think, like, I don't know what I thought when I went there. I think this is like a luxurious, privileged route where I was like, I don't know. And my parents were really supportive of that and sort of me figuring it out. And I think I was like, maybe I'll be in the family business. I don't even know. So being a general fine art major allowed me to really focus on drawing and painting. And at MICA, I was the first year of this video major. Video production will be sort of like a bold statement to make for the major because it was really like a art school. So like it also was like video art. So like that can be like a wide range of things. Like I ended up doing characters. Like it was so clear I wanted to do what I do now. And I ended up doing like this series of characters, me playing different characters that were very comedic that I would end up sort of doing on stage at UCB later when I would move to New York. But I shot them on video, and I projected them in a gallery setting at school as part of one of my senior shows. And so it was like very highbrow. You know, you walk into a gallery or a museum and there's a video projected. It feels very different than watching like a sketch on SNL. But it was kind of funny because I was doing way more like comedic sketch type characters, but because of the environment, it was it was very different the way it was viewed. And it was very cool to be able to be in that space. But I don't know really what the path was. I think I was hoping to be like have shows, like to be a working artist, and to be, which is sort of something I really still dream about. Like painting is something I've not been able to focus on for a long time, but it's something I'm like, having a gallery show is still like a huge dream of mine.
Or we could just revisit the new skill job question, and you could make a movie or a show where you play a painter.
I could.
And you fuse passions.
I could do that though, because you're not really having to, You're not really having to learn to do the thing, but yes,
You might.
I
might.
could. It could all be my paintings. I can insist.
It could
Yes.
be. It could be
Yes.
editing, or it could be that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe in that route. So that is one step of your journey studying. This next bit, I'm really curious to hear about. You moved to New York and you continue to study your craft. You mentioned UCB, but also you took classes at Atlantic Theater Company, which is a really unique combination that I feel like I don't hear about. I don't know if the classes overlapped for you, but at the time, what was it about the pairing that made you think, I need both of these to do what I want to do?
Well, they did and they didn't. So I'm at MICA. That's the abbreviation of Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore. And through these videos in the gallery space, I sort of got feedback that people really loved this. And I sort of allowed myself to finally admit, I think I want to be an actor, even though that feels like an impossible thing to go after. And so I applied to go to Atlantic's Theater Conservatory program, which is like this 2-year program that's more dramatic acting, which I know that I'm known for. And I got in. And so this was like huge for me. And that I moved to New York. I graduated college, moved to New York with someone I knew from college, and we were roommates in Astoria. And I started at Atlantic, and I was there in that conservatory program for a week. It broke me down. Art school for me was this very expansive environment in which it really taught me how to see. Like when you are studying art, you're looking at light, and there's just different ways of seeing things, which I think really helped me become very observant later in life in terms of like how I write and all these things. But Atlantic was very confining for me. I got so in my head. I felt very frozen the way in which they were teaching. It was like really intense scene study, and I was not used to that. It was like breaking down text and breaking down dialogue, and you're saying this, but what are you really saying? And it, which is a way a lot of actors learn to break down text. It just is not how my brain works. And it sucked. It sucked balls. I remember there's a block in New York. It's like on 15th and maybe 8th Avenue. And I remember breaking down. And that's a thing you see people do in New York. You see people crying on the street because they're going through a moment.
Chelsea Market now.
It was Atlantic was was in the building that Google is in. That's a block away from Chelsea Market. And because I was I moved here to be an actor, and I can't do it. And I had to make a decision. I had the week. If I didn't quit, I would lose my deposit. So it was I have to quit, or if I'm going to stay and be miserable, I'll lose this big deposit. And so I quit. And I stayed in a part-time program there. Truly, that was maybe a 5-week thing. And I couldn't even finish that, which sucked to even not be able to finish it, because I was this is making me hate this art form. And so I went home to my apartment that I was living in with a friend who I went to MICA with. And she was like, have you ever heard of this place, the Upright Citizens Brigade? Your videos, you would love it. And I had never even heard of it, hadn't heard of the show. And I went by myself and watched a random ass improv. I don't even know what show it was. And I was like, that is what I want to do. And then I was working at so much of this is in Broad City. I was working at anthropology in Rockefeller Center as a day job, and started taking classes at UCB.
That's part of the reason why I ask about school. There's a billion different approaches to acting out there, and sometimes you got to try one, realize it's not for you, and find another path that'll prove to be better.
Exactly. And I needed to go through that. And I think when was this? This is over 20 years ago, which is insane. No. Sorry, it's not 20 years ago. 2006. It's almost 20 years ago.
I'm doing my own math in my head and stopping short of blurting it out loud right now.
I graduated in 2006 from college. So we're talking 2000, like fall of 2006 is when I discovered UCB. And like for a long time, up until kind of recently, there's been a little bit of a thing of like, well, I'm not trained. I'm not like an actor. I can't do drama. And so I'm just now coming to realize like I don't need to have gone to Atlantic to consider myself an actor and to be able to take on dramatic parts.
Also, like even before you told that story and you kind of joked like I'm not known for more dramatic performance beats, like I just binged all of No Good Deed. And yes, it does lean comedy, but there's quite a few moments where like it's very real, relatable, emotional material that I think you handle beautifully.
Thanks.
I
appreciate that. Yeah, I think Liz does a really great job of – you kind of need that to buy how – because it does also go the opposite way where you need there to be some really grounded moments for it to go off the rails, which it does. But no, that's what drew me to the part too. But yeah, I think that also I have to stop that narrative because I do think so much of my training at UCB lends itself to drama. I think also comedy is so like heartbreaking. So yeah.
No, it is so incredibly true. I'll jump from there to Ilana in Broad City. I got the opportunity. I got the opportunity to meet her for the very first time at South by for Babes, and like just the coolest, the coolest.
She's the best.
What is the very first thing you saw in her or saw her do that made you stop and go like, my God, that's going to be a real good long-time collaborator for me?
I mean, it was pretty immediate. Like I wrote like this book of essays years ago where I write about this story of meeting Ilana, and it was so immediate for me. We met. I'd been taking classes at UCB. I think we met in 2007. So been taking classes for maybe half a year or something. And when you're at these comedy schools, oftentimes you create you have a practice group because you want to like work your muscles of improv so that you can like maybe make it to like main stage. And I was on this practice group with a couple of kids I met in classes, and my friend Tim was like, there are these two people I met in a class. Can I bring them onto the practice group? And it was Ilana and her brother Elliot. And they came in one night, and well, first of all, I thought she was Alia Shawkat. So this is 2007, and Arrested Development was like had just ended or whatever, and I was like, whoa, like crazy. She's on my improv team, and that could have happened. And I don't know. And then we went to this bar that was like the famous UCB bar called McManus in Manhattan, and I remember sitting at the bar, and one, I thought she was so funny in this practice group. Like we had like a 2-hour session, and then we all went to get a drink after. And I remember the two of us, only two women on the team, were sitting there, and it's so equivalent to the characters in the show, the way that they felt about each other. But like I had a lot of like great best friends growing up, and it kind of goes, I want to say like women growing up, but it kind of surpasses any gender because it was just like it was just like this kindredness where I was like, this person makes me laugh so much and is like so like brassy or like I mean, you met her, but it's like was more like this back then, where she was like a little like bold and opinionated and tell it like it is, just like we amplify her to be on the show. But no one I had in my life was like that, and no one is since that. It's like so very Ilana.
Always makes me so happy to hear when like two people find each other in this business, because sometimes that could be make or break. It's so hard to find. So
oh my goodness,
just like so special that you had that.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, it was like that. I could truly like get emotional about it, but it was like that was like a complete life-changing like moment where we were just friends, and we're in this improv team for 2 years before we started making the web series, but it was like that. It was even life-changing to have her as a friend. So, yeah.
Ugh, that's the best. So I'll jump to the show. I'll squeeze in 2 questions about Broad City. First one is one that I like to repeat quite a bit on Ladies' Night because I feel like we all have this idea of what it's like to break out in Hollywood, but like we are outsiders looking in. So for you, when that show, the TV version, hits it big, what would you say is maybe a misconception you had about what it means to break out in Hollywood? But then maybe can you also pinpoint that something that truly changed for the better when that show took off for you?
I guess for us, well, one, I was so happy to be doing it. We were doing it together, and it was like all happening for us at the same time. So we were able to be like, wait, what's going on? And I guess a misconception, I think it was such a jarring, I don't know if I'm going to answer this right or enough, but it was such a jarring thing to have something that we were making feel like it was resonating with people and hitting. And it without a doubt did. But I think Ilana would agree where like, I mean, Broad City came out in 2014. Do you have that in your notes? Is that right?
That sounds about right.
But we sold it probably in 2012 or something like that. But I think that Ilana and we still talk right now about sort of like, well, it did hit, but we still there's a lot of barriers still. I think maybe that's a misconception of there's still it did end. We're like, wait, we can't there's still so much that it still feels like we're sort of climbing up a hill. Which is good. That's not bad, but I think it's there's still – I don't know if I'm explaining this right.
I mean, to be honest, that's kind of what inspired the question was how quick folks are to think the second you make it, it's it's smooth sailing and all the opportunities you want come your way, and it's not always as cut and dry and simple as that.
Yeah, and I think listen, our show did hit in a way that we always dreamt it would, and it hit the people we wanted it to hit, and hopefully maybe more, but it was still quite we're still talking about the now not really existing Comedy Central, but it was we hit on Comedy Central in a way that I think we're still trying to figure out how to pave our way in the industry in a different sense. I don't know.
Oh, I have so many questions now about paving your way in this industry. First, before I jump to one specific thing that I want to hit, I do have to touch on A League of Their Own because whole lot of fans out there who watch and read Collider and well beyond, you know that. So probably no surprise. I have to ask about the cancellation, specifically the fact that when we all read about it in the trades, it is specifically blamed on the strike. And then I read your post about it, and you say to blame this cancellation on the strike is bullshit and cowardly.
I did say that.
What do you blame the cancellation on?
I think I was just talking to someone about this yesterday. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think a lot of places, a lot of networks and studios canceled things when the strike was happening. And I think they canceled things that they maybe okay, let me go back. Was the strike a part of the cancellation? Yes. But did it feel also that the strike was an easy way for them to cancel the show? Yes. That's sort of it's this scapegoat has come up and of the strike and we're losing money and we got to let it go. Whereas we'd been making, Will Graham and I had been making this show for so long. I was working on League when I was still making Broad City, and so there was an overlap. It was 7 years that we were doing season 1, and they picked up a season 2, and it was I've sort of repressed a lot of these details because it's been over a year, I guess, and it was such a whirlwind where we were it just felt like we were truly being like dragged around. Like, okay, we're picking it up, but wait, like the budget's being completely slashed and we're going to make 4 episodes. And then it was like, well, we were like, well, in success, we're going to make – what does that mean? We're making 4-episode seasons now? So we were like, okay, we're going to make the second season will be 4 episodes and then we'll write to end it. If that's devastating in itself, but okay, let's do it. And then we did that. Like we wrote them all and we were like preparing to shoot them. Like the cast was holding and all these things and then the strike happened and it I don't want to say all the things because I don't want to like that when I wrote that it was like that like me calling them it bullshit and cowardly and all that was like picked up everywhere and I just like don't fine. I stand by that, but I guess I don't know if I want to like revisit the exact things that I could about that experience, like that are underneath that, if that makes sense.
Fair enough.
I just think it's it's a show that is about a lot of things. It's a show that's about baseball. It's a really queer show. It's a really Black show. And I think it had been proven that it had a fan base. And I think what's a shame is that all these networks and studios have the ability to a certain extent help audiences find these stories and help sort of – listen, you're not going to ever be able to totally control which shows are successful, but if you have huge, huge shows that are without a doubt successful, I do think there's a place to have a show that has a great audience and it doesn't have to be as successful as your most successful show. Like there should be a range of what a successful show is on every network, if I'm making sense.
Oh, you're making all the sense in the world to me,
I'm like,
at least.
there's a term that we and I think the industry says a lot, which is like white guys with gun shows are really, really successful. And I'm like, well, okay, you have those. They make you a lot of money. I think this show, clearly they don't feel like it was making them enough money on the return, but it does – listen, I'm not like a financial expert in this industry, but I also think that there are other things that are just as important in shaping the scope of programming. Mm-hmm. And so I think one show can make enough to support some other programming. Not to say that you should make something that is like making you in a fucking deficit or something, but I don't know. I don't think that we were.
I'm willing to believe that you were not doing that to them. And I know for a fact because I've spoken to so many people who were deeply touched and absolutely adored that show. So the fact that you didn't get to see it through to fruition broke a lot of hearts out there. But I always love emphasizing one thing that always interests me when I'm talking to someone who made something really good, but then either have it canceled or maybe it doesn't do well at the box office. If it's in a feature film realm, is making sure that a cancellation or a poor box office performance never takes away from like the quality of the art you made and the people it touched. So I hope that how this ended does not take away from any of that with you and the rest of the team.
I don't think it does. I think like I'm in touch with a lot of people who made that show still. Like a lot of them are my really close friends. And I think it's been able to be like such a positive spot and everyone feels that. Everyone feels like we made this thing that was really special because it was really special to make. And it was, based on a lot of research and stuff that we felt like had not been told really. And so I'm so proud of that show. And yeah, I guess I'm like, that's why I'm like, oh God, like I don't like that, even that post, I'm like, I hope that it didn't like overshadow the thing. But I'm like,
certain things also need to be said to change the industry for the better.
I just felt like I had to like, I don't know. we won this. It was so lovely. The HRC awarded League in 2022. And Shantae, who plays Max on League, and I went to DC and accepted the award and gave a speech. And it was right when we were in the middle of this back and forth with them it was very tumultuous. And it was actually, they picked it up after this happened, but it was very tumultuous. And my speech, but not bizarrely, I'm so excited, not so excited, but I'm like, it was very cool that this speech I gave was maybe the most seen thing I've ever posted on the internet, is so me talking about this. It's before cancellation, I could have done the speech after they canceled it, and it would be the same because it was really in the thick of how I felt about these gatekeepers. Mm-hmm. And you have the power to show that a really queer, really the themes of this show are important, and you as this huge entity care about them, and you're willing to invest in them beyond and I think we're seeing a lot of shows like that being canceled, and so and are not marketed enough. Mm-hmm. So they could never make it. They could never be as successful, and they're being held to be as successful as these franchises that just aren't up against the same things to begin with. So I could go on and on. You could just watch the speech. Just watch the speech.
It is. I happen to have watched it right before. It is a wonderful speech. So I do think talking about things like that helps the situation. And also I was reading a bit about Tender Pictures and specifically the Prelude program.
Yes.
Which
oh
is
my goodness. Wait, we just picked our fellows last night. I was at my office till 10:30 last night. We were deliberating we have this little cohort of deliberation committee, and we picked our 10 fellows.
Congratulations on that. That's a really big deal what you're doing. I clearly talking about Ilana earlier. I love when people find their collaborators and stick with them. I think that's important. I also think it is of the utmost importance in this industry when you do have a platform and you do have experience to pull newer people up with you. So can you tell me a little bit about that program and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah. So before COVID, I'd been really trying to figure out, I just felt like every project I was doing, even though I hope that the stories that I'm telling, whether as a writer, an actor, or whatever role, are impactful in some way, or are putting something good into the universe, I still felt like all my projects are still self-serving. I'm making money off these projects, and I wanted to find something and create something that wasn't feeling like that. And that wasn't just financial. That was me giving of time. And I'd been brainstorming for a while. COVID happened, and then I met who is now my partner in Prelude, co-creator in Prelude, and works with me at Tender now, Mika Tennant, who was a friend of mine and had worked in this space. She was a strategic advisor on this doc called Daughters. That's on Netflix right now. Yes. Really incredible documentary. Anyway, we started talking about this a little over a year ago, and I was talking about what I was really looking for, and it sort of ended up shifting into an industry-based program. And I had talked about how important meeting Ilana and the other folks, my whole community when I shifted over to UCB, and met all of these people coming up in comedy. Without having done that, I would never have done anything after that. It was all about finding my people. And when I look around at the comedy landscape right now, there are so many of these people that I met when I was 22, and we were doing improv, and it's just so essential, whether they do exactly what I do or something off to the side. It was all about collaboration and being able to brainstorm and just share experiences as we were kind of growing up in the industry. And so I was sharing a lot of this with Mika, and she was at Sundance with Daughters. This is last January. And trying to keep this story kind of short, but Daughters is about it follows 4 girls in D.C. whose fathers are incarcerated. And this organization started doing this father-daughter dance at the prison to create more of a relationship between these 4 daughters. And it followed them for 8 years. And it truly, it's an incredible documentary. Everyone should go see it. But it's on Netflix. You don't have to go anywhere. But she's at Sundance, and the girls who were in the doc were there. And one of them is telling Mika how she wants to be a cinematographer. And Mika was like, oh, wow. And then 5 minutes later, Mika is with one of the producers. I'm not going to say who it is. There's so many, like producers that came on after to help amplify the doc. And they brought their daughter. And this producer is a huge name in the industry. And the daughter is the same age is like almost the same age as one of the girls in the doc who had just said she wanted to be a cinematographer. And this producer's daughter was like, I really want to be a director. And Mika's having these separate conversations and is like, Abbi. And we started talking. It was like, okay, on one hand, this girl just wants to do this. There's no access. There's no door. There's no path. Over here, she has every door in the world available to her. And that was it. Like our brain started going. It was like, okay, what if we can create a new path that does not exist for fellows who have no access? And what does that look like? And also we did sort of like a scope of other mentorship and fellowship programs in the industry. And a lot of them have barriers of entry. So you have to submit your pilot. You have to submit your short film, or you have to be a little bit farther along to get in. And so we wanted ours to be really early, like early entry, like before entry level positions. And that's why it's called Prelude. And so it's starting very, very early. And we're intentionally chose the word storyteller to all our applicants. So you can have like multidisciplinary dreams. And so we're partnering with a bunch of organizations in the LA area. And at first we were just going to get applicants from there, like the LGBTQ Center, Girls Right Now, like a bunch of these orgs. And then I did a little bit of a brief thing on Instagram to get applicants. We got a bunch of applicants and interviewed. We narrowed it down to 21 and did all these Zoom interviews, and just finally last night decided on the 10. That was such a long explanation.
It's beautiful. I'm glad you gave the full explanation because, like, people should know. People should know that opportunities exist like this.
And it is like a really untraditional program because we're not all the fellows are different. So it's not like, okay, by the end of the 8 months, you're going to have a script to go out there. It's not that. It's truly – I'm really hoping that, like, they find their cohort. They find their people that they can rely on and collaborate with the way I did. And then also the facilitators and the mentors that we've brought on, and we have this great board, we're hoping to really create an infrastructure that can be nimble to the needs of the fellows. And so we hope that we can create like space to play the way I felt like at MICA, where there's like how to see and how to look at things differently and how to express yourself and use your own stories and find confidence and be able to give and receive feedback, like skills that I really took years to develop in the industry, so that also at the end of the 8 months we can kind of have the flexibility to feel out how we can help them like get to the next thing, whatever, if that's a different fellowship, if that's trying to get them like an assistant position, or we just don't know, but it's exciting.
Such an important resource to be giving people right now. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. No good deed.
Yeah, no good deed. Okay, great.
First question with that one is a biggie. That opportunity comes your way. What is something about the story and maybe specifically the character that made you think like, I have something to gain from this as an artist who is always evolving my craft?
Yeah. So I met with Liz Feldman. We had dinner before the strike about this, and she told me about the project. I read the pilot and told me about the project, told me about the character, told me about why she wanted to make this show. And I was such a fan of Dead to Me and of hers. And she has a very unique style. It's very Liz. Like No Good Deed has a lot of the same elements that you feel when you watch Dead to Me. I think you feel a lot of like, wait, what's going on? Like every episode is like twists and turns and like shocks and it's funny and it's sad and there's like everything. You're on like a little roller coaster ride. And I felt like that tone was different than what I had done. And it's a mystery. There's like all these like mysterious elements of the storytelling, which is not really what I had done before. And then Liz also told me that Leslie Fisher, my character, is sort of based on her, which is so fun. And that was just like such a different thing. I'm not like doing an impression, but it was very cool throughout the whole thing to have Liz. Like I would just sort of like have her, like she's very full of energy and like is also very type A and like is always like, you know, she's also the showrunner and she was directing a lot of episodes. She's also like very like always like what's going on, like what's over there. And so Leslie is a assistant district attorney, and as you watch the show, she's like the one that's like, what the fuck's going on? And I'm going to figure out what's happening here. And it might be for my own personal interest, but I'm going to figure it out. So that is just like it's fun to watch and fun to embody someone who is crossing these boundaries that I would never cross, but she's doing it for a reason that she cares about her family and she wants this so much for her family. So those were all like exciting things, and it was just really funny.
I'm going to come back to the personal benefit idea when we talk spoilers. I got a big question about that. But first I want to go back to Liz's style in particular, because obviously she's an absolute ace writing-wise, but I feel like it's another thing to then take what's on the script and tonally absolutely nail it on set. So what is something about how she establishes an environment on set that's kind of like conducive to finding that pitch-perfect balance?
I mean, I think she allows for play on set, and it's interesting after watching, I think in most cases when there's room to play on set, it ends up being like tightened in post, but it creates opportunity. Like even if it creates the opportunity for there to be like, what am I trying to say? Like, I think she was always like, okay, make it your own and like let's try this other stuff. And then, you do that after you get it really scripted. And then like, I don't know what percentage she actually uses that playing, but the playing on set creates the environment of play and of collaboration and everyone just like loosens up a little bit. And I think even if it's, say, 30% that gets used, it will always be worth it because those little nuggets will always like stand out. But I don't know. I always appreciate when she'd be like, just go. This time just like go, which is so fun.
I fear you might not remember a specific example, but I'll try. Can you recall a time when you did something that was scripted a certain way, you liked it, but then she said play and you took a really big swing? And whether it's in the finished show or not, it felt really good to kind of play with that gap.
Well, this is not in the show, but this was just like such a treat for me. And maybe Liz was just doing this for us, but maybe in the second to last episode, I'm in a scene with just Lisa Kudrow, which is like for me, like top moment, as a actor, as someone who grew up watching her. Like my dad took me to LA once when I was like right around 13, and he was here on business and took me, and we took a tour of Warner Brothers and surprised me and took me to an episode of Friends. Like we saw a live taping. And so like and I remember, and I told her this, and I knew Lisa before the show, so it wasn't like I had time to like already like gush to her. But I did tell her that seeing Friends and seeing how they would like fuck around in between and like fuck with each other in like the best way, I was like the process is just as important as the product. Like they're having so much fun. Anyway, all to say, Liz was like, there's this really serious scene between me and Lisa where like she's coming to me. It's like a pivotal scene and it gets really sad. But Liz was like, Abbi, just like go. And there's like this whole long thing that I'm like, I'm like explaining away something and like freaking out and I'm just improvising. And we got to improvise for a little bit. And that was just like the best. And of course it's not in there. Like it shouldn't be in there because plot-wise, this is an important scene and it can't go all the way over there. So I don't know. I think Liz also just like got caught up and was like, do it,
That scene as is in the finished product is just, I'm going to come back to that one because that is just like utter perfection in seriously, I mean it in every single respect. Another thing I think is utter perfection in this show is your chemistry with Poppy. I'm like obsessed with the two of you in these roles together. Like your cadence is just really so fun. Spot on.
I had met Poppy previously because Poppy's on Hacks and I'm friends with all those guys. And they're so funny on Hacks. And I'd seen them in a bunch of other projects, but I was so excited because this is like a little bit more grounded, but I love the dynamic of Sarah and Leslie. Like when they start to like try and figure out what's going on, there's all these like there's this episode, I don't know which one, where they're in the car and they keep having different information. They're like talking over each other with different information. Like they have like the wrong information that they've both figured out. You'll see if you watch it. But like Poppy's character has like been doing detective stuff. I've been over here and we're like, and it's like, wait, what? Like it was so fun. And I just had a lot of fun doing those with them. And it was very immediate. Like we were like, we didn't have to do a lot of work to get to that. Yeah.
I am not surprised. That dynamic is so good. When you have a scene partner like that, I always find there's great opportunity to find new things about your own character through that scene partner. So what is something about her that maybe helped you unearth something in Leslie that you never even realized was there to begin with?
Well, I think like it's also in Liz's writing is sort of like they like some of my, which is just how how couples are. Like some of like my grievances, and they're tiny, are like I can't stand that Sarah's all over the Citizen app, and it's like you're obsessed and this, and it's like a lot of my grievances inform Sarah, and a lot of Sarah's grievances inform Leslie, which is like I can't let a story go. Or, I mean, I think that. I'm trying to answer the question because I think I tried to be informed by the script as much. And
makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. But the episode where I think it's episode 3 where it really is revealed like how
that's a great scene.
They've been trying to have a baby for a really long time. They'd done, I think, like 5 rounds of IVF, and it just didn't work, and it was devastating. And this is before we meet them. And it was devastating. And in episode 3, we find out, like, why I wanted to stop versus why she wanted to keep going, or why she stopped, why she agreed to stop. And it was a really – I mean, I learned about the character, but I also just, like – I learned about, like, relationships, and it was, like, a reminder to me of, like – we're constantly making assumptions about everyone in our lives. We're making assumptions about how they're feeling about every situation. And we often make the assumption and like, we're like, yep, that's how they feel. And we're good. And they didn't say anything ever again about it. So we're good. But it's like, they weren't communicating about it. And I don't know. It was just a reminder of just like, they're not talking about it until they're like freaking out about it. And I just did reveal a thing.
We have an editor to do he loves when I give him shout-outs.
But that's a spoiler. Do you want to spoil it?
Oh, we can spoil it. Trust me. We'll find. My editor, Adam, I'll shout him out right now. And you better keep this in the episode, buddy. He is a creative genius with stuff like that. We're going to have fun. And I guess from this point on, the spoiler warning is up.
Spoiler.
I will just say with that scene in episode 3, I love how it's so emotional and so profound. And it starts with like physical comedy of you getting off the treadmill. There's so many moments like that.
That was the first scene I shot.
Huh.
So I was also like, what is like tonally, like I was trying to figure out like, you know, what the vibe is. And it was like, that's a cool one to set it because you're right. I'm running on a treadmill. I'm running to show her that I'm angry. Like it's established I don't run, you know, Poppy comes in and is like, okay, you haven't used this in forever. And I'm like, I'm angry running. And I was like, no, I need to actually run. I was like, before they would roll or they would start rolling and I would like sprint because I really wanted to be out of breath when we like started. And I love that. Like that's like the biggest gift to be like, we're going to put this really emotional scene on top of the treadmill.
There's a lot of examples like that where you get like a really good comedic beat, sometimes a form of physical comedy that just like veers in a way you're not expect. That's why I keep coming back to Liz's work. She keeps me on my toes. Here's one random question that I had thought about with Matt's character, Greg. This is something you might not have even have talked about, but I am curious. Did any of you ever consider why he wound up being everyone's realtor? Is it just a matter of them all being in the same vicinity, or is there anything about them as people that kind of landed them in his lap?
You know what? I think that's which Poppy and I would often do this on set where we were like, wait, but how did that, what? Like where you're like kind of like poking around where it's like, no, actually he's the seller's realtor. We would all have other realtors. It's actually kind of conflict of interest when the seller's realtor and the buyer's realtor are the same, isn't it?
I think it is.
I guess realtors make so much money, so they would just
I'm
make
never
like
buying a
double.
house, so what would I know?
I think that's the case. I think they make like such a huge commission. That's why he's like how he is.
It's probably true.
But I think they're supposed to be separate. Isn't that? I think so.
Is that how house buying works?
But it wouldn't be as fun if it wasn't just Matt.
He's so good in that role too.
Good.
He's
one of
delightful.
one of the funniest human beings.
Yeah.
And also like a joy.
Were
a lot on like it was a lot of the days were like me, Matt, Poppy, and Lisa, or that was like a heavy day.
That's a very delicate role to be able to like go big but not overdo it and then lose the audience. And I'm very impressed by how he goes big but still keeps it very in-world.
Yeah.
So now that we have the spoiler warning up, I did want to go back to that scene with you and Lisa because like, again, I just think it's a brilliant performance beat from both of you, given how heavy that moment is and given it completely redefines, like, the narrative of the show and what we now know. How does your prep process have to change when you know there is so much on your shoulders?
I mean, I think that it was a really big reminder for me of, like, I think the more I do this, so maybe it's fucking obvious, but again, I'm not a trained actor. I'm best when I'm just react to the other person. And in this scene, I'm explaining myself, but like I really felt a lot of, I just really wanted to be a good scene partner for Lisa because that scene takes a really major shift that was like very, very difficult. And I was trying to put myself in her shoes, to be honest, because that shift there for her is like that's a really hard performance thing, especially after I just told you I'm doing, Liz is like, okay, but before the shift, Abbi, go off. And it's like us doing that is actually making it a little bit harder because it's making that shift to like this really emotional moment come off of like a very hard comedy beat. So I think I was really, really aware of that. And I mean, Lisa, I was so excited that Lisa was doing this because it's not as often that you see her play. I mean, she's so funny on the show, but like she's also so real and it's devastating. Like what happens is devastating and she's trying to explore what that would feel like. And I was just like very aware of trying to be a really good scene partner for her in that.
It's of the utmost importance. She has so many turns like that. And like especially where the show ends. Like you're having so much fun trying to figure everything out. The fact that it winds up being such an impactful emotional wallop that earns the emotion that it evokes from us, that's something else. Yeah. I will end with the biggest spoiler question of all. I'm just curious, what was your reaction when you read the end of the show and realized that Sarah and Leslie wind up with the house?
Yeah.
Did it feel right to you?
You know what? It did. And I'm trying to think because, like, we would get the scripts, like, a little bit before the table reads, and I think it was, like, going to end differently.
Ooh.
And I don't know if that means we weren't going to get the house, but, like, the show did end very differently, and then it changed when we got the shooting scripts, which happens a lot. But I think I was, like – I think I felt like that – the series of events of like even that scene with Lisa and how my character ended up helping her and it became not it was still self-serving, but I hope and feel like for Leslie, once she figured out what had happened in the house and got to know Lydia a little, it wasn't just self-serving. I think it almost like got to be not self-serving and it was for the family and then they got the house.
That was one of my questions. That's what I hope.
Like
earlier.
The scenes we don't see. I mean, where it's like she let go of like she's like I can't imagine this happening. I'm going to help you with what I can do at work and figure this out for you and be your lawyer and let go of my interest in the house and then got the house.
It felt authentic in that scene we were just talking about. I did believe that was her priority.
It was. I think it's just. There's a fine line there that Liz toes of like, because everyone is very self-serving in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's putting it lightly in some cases.
Yeah.
So we have hit the end of Collider Ladies Night. Every single Ladies Night interview ends with this particular question. Some people don't like it. I don't care because I think it's an important thing to think about.
Okay.
In this industry, we give each other awards. I think that's super cool. Everyone should always keep doing that. But I find that nobody tells themselves good job as much as they should. So can you tell me something you accomplished working on No Good Deed that you know you'll always be able to look back on and say, you know what? I am so proud of what I did there.
I mean, I think I would say, like, just to finish out the conversation about that scene, I'm really proud of, like, this show is like an ensemble that is wild. And I'm like, wow, I'm in that ensemble. That's crazy. Like, if truly, like, we began talking about my student council representative duties, if that kid would see me in this ensemble and I mean doing a scene like that with Lisa Kudrow and and I feel like I stood my own ground in it. I think I'm really proud of that.
As you should be.
Yeah.
You should be so proud of that. You should be so proud of the Prelude program and how you're influencing this industry for the better and with shows like League of Their Own, how you're filling viewers up in ways that other companies are not doing out there. So thank you for all of that. I'm going to say huge congratulations on everything you've accomplished on No Good Deed, everything coming your way in the future. I could have sat here and talked to you for hours and hours and hours.
You're
Come back
such
to
a good
Ladies Night
interviewer.
soon.
I will just say, you're great.